Daddy's Fables, Mocha and Latte, an adventure outside the fence. In a quiet village nestled in the mountains, there lived a small and loving family. Everyone in the neighborhood knew them well, mainly because of two very special and mischievous members of the household. Their names were Mocha, a long-eared tricolor beagle, and Latte, a short-legged Jack Russell terrier with a tail that never stopped wagging. The two had been best friends since they were pups and were deeply loved by every member of the family. Every morning, as soon as their owners woke up, Mocha and Latte would run circles around the dining table, barking softly to ask for breakfast. Once fed, their daily antics would begin, running around, chewing on Mom's hidden shoes, tossing pillows at each other, and even pulling down the curtains to play tug-of-war. "Oh, Mocha, Latte, that's enough, you two," Mom would shout every day. Even though they often turned the house upside down, no one could stay mad at them. One look into their big, innocent eyes or a gentle nuzzle would melt anyone's heart. One day, while the family was out running errands and left the house to the two dogs, the peace and quiet became the beginning of a grand adventure. "It's so boring," Mocha muttered, scratching his ear. "Let's go find something fun," Latte exclaimed, his eyes gleaming as he darted around looking for a toy. Mocha ran out to the backyard and headed for a corner of the fence that no one really paid attention to. He lowered his head and began pushing through a small gap at the base, an old hole he'd secretly dug a few days earlier. "Scritch, scritch, Mocha, what are you doing?" Latte cried out in alarm. "Going to see what's outside." "Come on, wait, we'll get in trouble," but Mocha clearly wasn't listening. With a sigh, Latte made up his mind and followed his friend through the hole. Outside, the world was bursting with new smells, chirping birds, and rustling leaves in the wind. The two felt like brave explorers setting off on a grand quest. "Wow, it's just like a dream," Latte shouted. "Let's explore everything," Mocha said eagerly. As they wandered further, crossing a small meadow, they came upon a huge, ancient tree towering over the area. Underneath the tree, Mocha spotted something round and green lying still on the ground. "Huh, what's this?" Mocha bent down to sniff it. "Mocha, watch out," Latte yelled suddenly. Whoosh! In a flash, a green pit viper that had been coiled silently struck toward Mocha at lightning speed. Yikes! Mocha jumped back just in time, barely dodging the snake's fangs. The snake slithered quickly into the bushes without a second glance. "Thanks, Latte," Mocha said, pale and shaken. "Don't ever stick your nose near weird stuff like that again, okay?" Latte scolded him seriously. Mocha nodded, and the two continued on, hoping nothing that scary lay ahead. After narrowly escaping the green pit viper, Mocha and Latte continued on with greater caution. They followed a path along the edge of a grassy field and eventually stopped beside an old well. It was a large, round concrete well, filled with sparkling clear water that shimmered in the sunlight. "Look, the water's so clear," Latte exclaimed, eyes wide, as he ran to the edge. Inside the well, a school of tiny fish swam in circles. Some were red, others had beautiful white spots. Latte had never seen live fish before. Excited, he leaned over to sniff them up close. "Be careful, you might slip," Mocha called from behind, but it was too late. Swoosh! Splash! Latte slipped and tumbled into the well. "Wah, help me," Latte yelled, splashing and paddling frantically. "Latte, don't panic, I'm coming," Mocha shouted and rushed to find a branch. He grabbed a long stick that could just barely reach the well and held it out to his friend. "Bite down hard," Latte bit onto the branch, and Mocha slowly pulled, inch by inch. With Mocha's strength and Latte's effort, the soaked little dog was finally out of the water. Both of them collapsed by the well, panting heavily. They looked at each other and laughed. "Thanks, Mocha, if it weren't for you, I'd be swimming with the fish all day," Latte said, shivering from the cold. "We're best friends. Of course I had to help," Mocha said with a smile. After resting for a bit, they got up and continued on their journey. By the time the sun had begun to lean westward, the two dogs were tired and hungry. The scent of food from distant shops drifted through the air, making Mocha's stomach growl loudly. I'm so hungry," Mocha groaned. "Hang in there, we'll get home soon and have a big meal," Latte said, trying to cheer him up. But just as they were getting ready to head back, loud barking echoed from the alley ahead. "Woof, woof, woof, what's going on?" Latte turned to look. From the shadows beneath a tree, a large black dog emerged. He was nearly twice Mocha's size, with tight muscles, bristling fur, and sharp eyes. It was the local guard dog. "Who said you could walk through my territory?" he barked in a threatening tone. Mocha and Latte glanced at each other, then back at the big dog. "We're lost. We didn't mean to bother anyone," Mocha said politely. But the local dog wasn't having it. "Anyone who enters this alley without permission gets chased out." With that, he lunged forward. "Run!" Latte screamed, and the two friends bolted. Their footsteps echoed through alleys, drainage ditches, and the backyards of nearby homes. Mocha leapt over a trash can, Latte slipped under a bench, and the local dog chased close behind. But thanks to their agility, and a lucky narrow gap that the big dog couldn't squeeze through, they finally got away. Panting heavily, they collapsed under a rose apple tree behind a small grocery store. "We made it," Latte gasped. Mocha nodded, looking down at his paws, completely exhausted. After the chase, they realized they had no idea where they were anymore. "Does this place look familiar to you?" Latte asked. Mocha looked around and shook his head. "No, I've never been here before." "Are we really lost?" Latte's stomach started to twist with anxiety. Mocha said nothing. He was so hungry he could barely walk. His legs wobbled, and his eyes began to blur. "Mocha, don't fall asleep." Latte shook his friend. I'm tired. Let me rest for a bit." Latte clenched his teeth. Even though he was just as exhausted, he refused to give up. He wandered around, sniffing, listening, hoping for something, anything, that could lead them back home. And then, just at that moment, vroom, a car engine rumbled nearby. Latte froze, ears up, and turned his head quickly. He saw a familiar pickup truck. It was their owner's car. "Mocha, get up. It's Dad's truck." Mocha lifted his head, his eyes lighting up. Both dogs sprang to their feet and ran with all their strength, chasing after the moving vehicle. "Wait for us, Dad," Latte shouted. The truck slowed and stopped at the corner of the road. The door opened, and the voice they had longed to hear all day rang out. "Mocha, Latte." The two dogs ran as fast as they could and leapt into their owner's arms. Their dad knelt and hugged them tightly. "Where have you been? Mom and the kids turned the whole house upside down looking for you," he said, stroking their heads. Mocha gave a soft bark as if to say sorry, and Latte licked the daughter's hand sweetly. When they got home, Mom had tears in her eyes, too happy for words. Their brother and sister came running to hug the two dogs as if they'd been gone forever. That evening, Mocha and Latte were treated to a huge meal, more special than any they'd ever had. That night, they snuggled into their basket, warm and safe. Just before falling asleep, Mocha whispered, "Latte, thank you for not leaving me." Latte smiled and replied, "We're a team, remember? Next time, if we want another adventure, let's keep it in our dreams." They both chuckled softly, then drifted off to sleep, with the important lesson in their hearts. Home may seem ordinary, but it is always the warmest and safest place in the world. Subscribe to Daddy's Fables channel for creative storytelling. Enjoy new stories that inspire all ages. Don't miss out. Subscribe today.